when you think about the work that you do, um, is there an experience? And I know that I think you've talked about this certainly before, but I'm curious to hear it again. If there's an experience in your childhood that really stood out for you, right? Like that drives why you're doing this work, you know? I'd love to hear about that. If you know, just maybe not necessarily the earliest one, but one that comes to mind right now. Because I know that for me, the the things that I choose to do in my life to help others and to give back are directly related to my own personal experiences in life. Um, and and so yeah, so I'd love to hear just maybe one that you haven't shared before. If you can think of one, or the one that sticks out to you most right now. I'd love to hear it.
Hmm. Um, Let me think if there is something that I haven't shared before. Like, because a lot of them are very similar in nature, and they kind of and they happen over a long period of years. Like, I've had the same experience over and over. So I wouldn't say that there's like one specific thing. It's
Mhm.
mostly like it was a journey of acceptance for me of my place in the racial hierarchy and what it meant for my life, right? So, like, ultimately, I was taught to be a good American meant that you believed in meritocracy, that you ignored racism, right? That you pretended like it was over, right? I grew up in that era where it was like, oh, we live in a post racial society. Can you even imagine? Like, that used to be commonplace to be on all news channels. It was in all media. Everybody was saying it. And like, it
I
was,
didn't,
yeah, go ahead.
I didn't even understand what that phrase. I still to this day don't even understand how that phrase came to exist, or what it actually means, or how naive it a phrase like that could have even come into existence. But yeah, sorry, go ahead.
No, it's fine. Yeah. And it was so widespread, it was everywhere. And, I can remember myself like chuckling at it, even back then.
Same.
Even back then, I knew it was absurd, but I also didn't recognize how telling it was about our country and our world that it became so popular, right? So I wasn't necessarily putting everything into the proper context. And that's what I would say was my experience that led me to this moment, right? Which was I was programmed, very much programmed to believe in meritocracy, to believe that as long as I worked hard, that my efforts would be recognized despite racism. And
Mhm.
basically, my life experience has been experience after experience after experience since I was a young child up to the
Mhm.
present day of me being proven wrong about that. And at a certain point, I had to accept, okay, like, because I wanted to believe it, right? Like, I was taught to believe it. I was taught that I need to believe in my own power to overcome any obstacle, including racism. And racism is just another obstacle you need to consider yourself being able to overcome. But
Mhm.
it's not just any old other obstacle.
Right.
It's not the
Right.
same as others. And it took me a long time to not only understand that, but to come to terms with it and like accept it.
Mm.
Because think about it, right? Like if if I accept that truth, then it puts you in that place of making a decision, the same decision I'm trying to put everyone else to, right?
Mhm.
Which
Yeah.
is, okay, if this is the truth, what am I going to do about it? Right?
Right.
And ultimately, there's very few options, right? There's like basically two. Either I can continue on the way that I was and just hope that I thread the needle in such a
Right.
way that I'm able to find a way to, uh, at least create some kind of a life for myself that I can be happy with despite the barriers, despite people suppressing me throughout all of my endeavors, no matter what they were,
Mhm.
and just live my life that way. Or I can try to make this world a better place, right? And try to ensure that the youth who come after me are not taught the same thing that I was taught, that they're taught something different, that they have an opportunity to learn something different, that they have an opportunity to see the world for what it actually is, and that they have an opportunity to decide early on what they want to, how they want to see themselves in that world as it exists. I
Mhm.
never got that chance. So I would say that I want to give people the chance that I never had to see the world as it actually is in the race context, and then make their own choice, whatever that choice is. If they do want to choose to live their life, in willful ignorance, I'm not going to judge anyone for that, honestly. And I know a lot of people don't believe that, but it's true, because this is crazy. Okay, racism is insane. White supremacy is crazy. A racial hierarchy, a human hierarchy is nuts. And the fact that it's been entrenched for generations, I mean, it's beyond the scope of any real individual person's ability to conceptualize. All you can do is recognize it when it arises, really. And so I try to give people grace, and I try to understand that I was once also, I'll tell you one experience. I will say one experience, and because it's relevant for the future work that I want to do as well. So I attended the University of Rochester for undergrad, and during orientation, I was hanging out with all racialized white people. I'm one of very few racialized black people in the entire school. So I'm in my dorm. We're all in the common area, and a black gentleman comes from the Office of Minority Affairs, and he sought me out. He was sent directly to me to seek me out, to offer me assistance from the office. And this is obviously something that they had designed as a program to help minority students at the institution.
Mm-hmm.
And he wanted to talk to me in private. And I, was like, oh no, you could talk, anything you could say to me, you could say right here, and he was all explaining what they do and how he wanted to offer the services. And I just humiliated him and laughed at him in his face. And when I reflect on my response to him, it was all about trying to prove, right, that I was just as good as anyone else. It was me acting out that meritocratic philosophy that I had internalized, to be like, I don't need any kind of special assistance. I got into this school myself, I've worked hard. I've worked just as hard as anyone else. I've done the things. Why would I need some kind of special assistance? And why are you singling me out like this, and blah, blah, blah. I was totally, just totally brainwashed, I would call it, at that time. And then my experience in undergrad was just a slow realization, and it threw me into a significant depression as well. A slow realization that, oh, maybe I did need that, and I just didn't realize it, And it wasn't just in the race context that I was having that as a gay man, right? I wasn't out as a gay man until I got to college. I came out in college. So my whole identity and the way that I saw myself and the way that I even imagined my future completely was changing during that time. And so it was a very difficult time, but again, very rewarding time, because it allowed me the choices, right? Do I want to live my life as a gay man, an open gay man? Easy choice for me there. The minute I realized it, I knew that I wanted to. I was never going to suppress myself or pretend to be someone I wasn't. And so as soon as I knew, everyone else knew. And then as soon as I finally came to terms with the racism stuff, and I'll tell you, man, it probably wasn't even just after undergrad. It probably wasn't even after grad school. The last straw was law school. When I faced racism in law school, my third degree I was on, right? And I'm I'm winning awards for the school. I'm doing all these things. I'm being, recognized. And then I got gatekept from becoming a lawyer by multiple white women. And it was really that experience where I went through a 9-month interview process, and I'm in the final interview with the attorney in charge. And I realized this woman has no intention of hiring me or recognizing me, and that she's the person to do it, and there's no one else, and that she's already made that choice without even meeting me, and that I had spent all my time and energy and money trying to get through that, and that was kind of all my eggs in that basket. And when I walked out of that building after that interview, shell-shocked, that was it. That was basically the final straw for me to be like, okay, can I really deny that there isn't some power that's making this happen, when 3 of my racialized white colleagues who had gone through this process had already told me that if I got that far, then this interview was a formality. I already got the job. You
Yeah.
know, to have this woman tell me that I was unprepared for the interview, to try to tell me after a 9 month process where I had individual interviews with lawyers there, group interviews where I had to do closing arguments, where I had to do all this stuff, to tell for her to tell me that I was unprepared for the interview, it was sobering. And
Mm.
what was even more sobering is when I forced her to justify that statement and she couldn't, and she apologized to me. Or when she then told me she would help me become a paralegal. And then she heard her own voice and was like, I'm sorry. She apologized for saying that and said, you probably want to be a lawyer since you just graduated from law school. I was just like it was surreal. She's talking to herself out loud. She's like literally
Mm.
narrating her own thoughts. And I'm just sitting there seeing my aspirations and dreams that I spent years cultivating just go up in smoke.
Yeah.
Um, it really forced me to realize yeah, there's no level of aptitude or ability or experience that I could ever gain that would stop this from occurring, you
Yeah.
know? And even though I guess I kind of had some understanding of that before this happened, the fact that it basically changed the trajectory of my life and there was absolutely nothing I could do about it. Um, that is what really made me decide, okay, I'm being forced into this position, right? I'm being forced into this position to do something about race and racism because if I try to ignore it, if I try to overcome it, this is what always happens. It's happened, before this moment, I had already lost tens of thousands of dollars that I could have, that would have been life changing money for me through
Yeah.
similar situations. But I was taught just to brush it off, go on to the next opportunity, try again, do this. But I kept running into the same thing over and over and over, and this was just the last straw. And I was like, okay,
Yeah.
maybe I need to just center anti-racism as part of the work that I do.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that, man. I mean, you know, my thought after all of this was, man, you dodged a bullet, you know? And I think that there's gold in that experience for you, right? I mean, it's you went to law school, you put in all this effort and all this money, and to be stopped there after putting in all the effort and all the work, um, in many ways, I think it's also like helped to shape your perspective and leading to what you're doing right now. And I think that having those real difficult experiences for me, and it sounds like for you too, really paved the way for you to do the work that you're doing now. And so, I think as difficult and as painful, and this is my judgment, of course, but as difficult and painful as that experience was for you, it sounds to me like what you're saying though is that it opened a door for you, and it really opened a door for you to move into a higher level of consciousness and understanding and awareness of yourself, of these racial hierarchies, because it is so nuanced and so layered, even though and it's layered with generations and time. And you spoke about this earlier. So I'm for what it's worth, I'm grateful for your experience at it with that woman because of what it led for you doing today. Had you got that job, you might not have been doing the work you're doing today. And I think also at times in my life, you know, I've wanted the equivalent of the job that you wanted, right? And despite what it might have meant was needed from me. It might have meant that I would have to fit in, right? I would have to relegate myself to living a life kind of in a certain way, not being free to speak, perhaps, right? We see that right now happening with the assaults and decimation of Gaza. Students and people who have jobs who are speaking out are getting disciplined. by especially in the legal field as well, since that's the field I am in also. Um, and offers and jobs are being revoked and rescinded um, because of individual support of Palestinians and the Palestinian cause.
And even in
Um,
Congress, Rashida Tlaib censured.
oh yeah, 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 yeah. I mean, and she's I mean to have Muslims or Palestinians talking about this issue, it's easy to just be censored. But I think, and I agree that love is really still the most powerful force out there, right? And that censorship um, should serve to only embolden her and those who are censored, embolden them to speak out louder. And sometimes I think that when that kind of censorship happens, I wonder if on the other side, those who are censoring realize that the potential for that person's voice to be heard even louder is a very likely and direct consequence of their own censorship. So it almost seems counterintuitive to do that. Um, but I think it goes back to that fear, right? And especially when those in power fear the loss of power, right? And fear as an emotion can drive a lot and can drive us to do things, and especially if we allow that emotion to control us. And I've been in that position before. I judge that many humans are in that position, um, but it doesn't help. And in fact, I think it could backfire. So yeah.
Yeah, 100%.
Mhm.
And I think that we just got to be cognizant of that. We've, unfortunately, we do have to take the high road. Not unfortunately, but like it's fortunate, but like it's hard.
Yeah, right.
When like literally your life is on the line and you have to just extend your hand. So yeah, it's not an easy thing, but I find that it gets easier day by day because honestly, when you live that way and when you exist that way, it's pretty difficult to not believe that you're doing the right thing.
Yeah,
Like it feels right. You know what I
yeah,
mean? And so even though sometimes it doesn't feel good, it always feels right.
yeah,
So, I'm gonna continue using the power of love and showing people that we're all humans, that we all share humanity. I think I wrote a tweet the other day that was like, you're no better than me, I'm no better than you, and most people are dumb. Okay, so that's where I'm at. I feel like a lot of people can agree with that. So find that common ground, build from there, and dispel the myths about white supremacy where I can, and other othering scenarios,
yeah,
and give people a chance to look within themselves, self-reflect, and choose how they want to exist in this world and whether they want to fight back against this enormous gargantuan power that has controlled us all for generations.
yeah.